Thank you so much. It's an honor to get to speak to you all. Thank you for inviting me for that very, very flattering introduction. Made me sound very great. And thank you to the guest of honor, Kathleen Carroll, for giving such an amazing speech. And I hope to add something to that, even though it was so comprehensive. I also want to thank the young musicians who I see are somewhere up there on the balcony. Because every time I hear the national anthem, the words "land of the free, home of the brave" start always ringing in my head. And I do think that they're such important words for the night we're here having. I have been in Finland now for a month, visiting from Washington, D.C., and I've gotten used to a question I hear every single day, which is, how worried should we be about the state of the United States? My answer normally is, how much time do you have? Because I love nuance, I love history, I want to try to explain what's going on as deeply as I can. But for the past 2 weeks, I've only answered with 2 words: very worried. We have seen stronger attacks on freedom of speech than we probably have seen maybe since President Adams, I guess. And it has made me question, do I still believe what I believe about the United States, which I will get to during the speech. I don't get this question only when I'm in Finland. I also get it in the dog park of Washington, D.C., where I discuss it with my friends who know that I have my ear on the ground. I travel across the U.S., I talk to everyone, I talk to people who think alike, who don't think alike, and who don't think at all, honestly. And so my American friends come to me as well, asking, how worried should we be? They also know that I have lived in Moscow for a long time, and I've tried to tell them what I saw when I was in Moscow during the years that Putin's crackdown on civil rights really took force. I remember especially one dinner from this year where we gathered at one NPR producer's place and talked about what is going on. There were many, many economics reporters, and we were talking about the economy and how they believe that people will really feel how they voted once the economy faces a downturn. And I asked them, but do you think that they will know that the economy is facing a downturn? And they looked at me and were like, what do you mean? And I was like, how long do you think that there will be information on what is the outlook of the economy? And they said that there will always be information on what is the outlook of economy. And I said, no, in Russia, at some point there wasn't. And lo and behold, a couple of months after, they looked at me like I'm a crazy person. Honestly, Trump fired the commissioner of statistics of the Ministry of Labor after weak job reports. And I thought that I told you so, but I also grew more and more worried. What makes me also worried about my American friends asking me, how worried should we be, is that it feels that they don't know how worried they should be. It feels that they don't know what is going on elsewhere in the country. And it also feels that Washington, D.C. is fearful. Many of my friends work in government positions, and they have never really taken a part into any assembly. They haven't gone to protests, but it has been because of fear lately. Many of my friends who are working in H-1B visas or anything such have stopped going to any type of protest long ago. And this fear and this not knowing what others think, I feel, are things that really, really dampen freedom of speech. They create distrust and lack of community that are needed for courage to happen. What I see is one challenge that we truly face in our time that maybe U.S. hasn't faced before are the tech giants. in my opinion. Because many things are cyclical in US history, as even was pointed out in the previous speech. But the tech giants have created a situation where we truly are in our own rabbit hole, on our own screen, and that is why my Washingtonian friends ask me what the others are thinking. It also creates a situation where, especially young adults who have always only used social media as their main news source, are less likely to have the patience for other opinions and also the patience for critical thinking. And these we know are important for the freedom to speak other opinions to remain. I still do think that there is one thing that also brings me hope about the time of algorithms we live in. And it is that once I open my social media, I do know that Americans definitely do want to say what they think still. They want to share their takes on everything, and they do still share their takes on everything. And while not all those takes maybe should be shared, I still think that it is such an important thing to notice, especially because I used to live in Moscow. And this is the moment where I know that US still has hope and has resilience of freedom of speech. When I was in Moscow, I got used to not trying to do certain stories or not trying to do stories that truly tell what people are thinking, because they wouldn't tell me what they're thinking. I especially remember one story where I was working, I wanted to do a story about what Russians thought about Putin Russia getting involved in the Syrian war. There had been polls about how Russians were against Russia getting involved, since they had such a strong memory of the failed Afghanistan war. They didn't want anything to do with Syria. Then Putin announced that we will get involved in the Syrian war. I rushed to the street because I wanted to prove a hypothesis of mine. The propaganda machine had not yet had time to let Russians know what to think about this. So I wanted to ask Russians what they think about this. The answer was nothing. No one wanted to say what they think. They said they will wait and see what they think. That was the answer. After 2 days, I did the same round again. And the answer was pretty much exact same from everyone who answered. Not in US though. In US, everyone still thinks and talks somewhat their own opinions. Not everyone, I want to correct. We also see similar tendencies in certain groups. But I still do believe that there is a lot of hope in what I see when I look at how much Americans are sharing their opinions. I do think that we obviously live in fateful days, years, and months of how US what will this beacon of hope we have always had, what will happen in US, and I can't overemphasize how important it is for Europe, since we have always looked to US as the one who carries the torch. In one way, I do think that it is time for Europe to carry the torch for a while and take the responsibility of safeguarding something while US is going through internal turmoil. But I also think that whenever I feel hopeless about how much work there needs to be done for us to get through or us to kind of fight these attacks on freedom of speech, I still find my hope actually from the United States and from my professional idol, historical figure, Ida B. Wells, and her words. Ida B. Wells famously said that the way to right injustice is to turn the light of truth upon those injustices. We are witnessing so much injustice in this world right now. I personally became a journalist because I wanted to stop genocides from happening. And I felt like I have failed already at this point in my career. But what I also have learned from the life story of Ida B. Wells is that the injustices she was fighting didn't end before she already had passed, but they did end eventually because of her work. And that historic fact is something that keeps my head up while I do my work and keep my ear on the ground. Thank you so much.